The main thing is to protect these characters, make sure that they still continue to live in the way that you created them, and that the universe of Star Wars continues to grow.
Welcome to Talking About Pop Culture with Jake D. Before we get started on the video, please don't forget to like, share with your friends on social media, comment on the video below to get the conversation going, and please do consider subscribing to the channel and so you can get alerts for all future content releases. And now, on to the video. For those of you who have been following what's been going on with Star Wars' absolute destruction since Disney bought the property, that interview with Kathleen Kennedy is probably a familiar piece by now. Ultimately, it's her in her own words discussing her distinct and exquisite betrayal of George Lucas and of the property of Star Wars that we all know and love. Lots of folks have said this better than I ever have on YouTube and in other media before, but at the end of the day, the most important thing that fans of genre care about is a respect and an honor for the story of what's come before in order to put your new story ahead of us and get us to buy your product. We, the people who are fans of the product, are your customers. We want to keep giving you money. We want to see good Star Wars. But we just have not gotten it, by and large, since Disney's purchased the property. Now, we did see last year in November what was hopefully a turning of the page, an adjustment, a realignment in the way that Star Wars is presented and respected for the fans.
We wanted to really wind it back to the things that inspired the original Star Wars.
Disney Plus premiered with a new show called The Mandalorian, headed up by Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. It broke new ground in that it returned to a world and a feel and a look that those of us who were longtime fans, lifelong fans, remembered from the original trilogy days when we saw Luke Skywalker destroy the Death Star, when we saw Han Solo fly the Falcon through the asteroid field, and ultimately when Darth Vader had his mask removed and was redeemed as Anakin Skywalker. That look, that feel, that aesthetic that was created by George Lucas all those years ago, beginning in 1977, was all that we wanted. It was all that we'd ever asked for. And yet we were treated to the garbage of J.J. Abrams.
Part of what you inherit when you're going to see Star Wars now is this whole history, because the stories have been told for decades.
Like many fans out there, even though I enjoyed The Mandalorian, I was skeptical. Was this really a change in the guard in how they're presenting Star Wars for the fan and in a way that we can relate to it and aren't at risk to try to re-engage and become a part of, what was once one of the greatest franchises on the history of the world? Was this just a bait and switch? Were they going to go about this the same way that they did between The Boys Season 1 and Season 2? Is everything going to be fine for a few episodes and then just crash back into the garbage that we've seen from Star Wars, everything that's been produced by Disney? We started getting our first hints that maybe that wasn't the case right at the launch of the show. Jon Favreau, the showrunner of The Mandalorian, was giving interviews in November where he talked about the need for respecting the fan and that the creators needed to listen to the fans. He did it again this year in 2020 in June. A lot of interviews where he talked about the fact that the creators and the fans needed to be a two-way street of communication with a level of mutual respect for each other. And he did not exclude himself and Lucasfilm as a part of that conversation. In fact, he felt that they were a key part of it in listening to what the people wanted and finding a way to deliver it, while still creating their own vision for what was to come with The Mandalorian. We've now seen yet another interview with Jon where he's come out and very specifically talked about honoring the past. Let's take a listen to some of that right now.
And this is something I learned from over at Marvel and working with Kevin Feige, is you always want to keep the core fans in mind, because they've been the ones that have been keeping the torch lit for many, many years. But these are also stories for young people and for new audiences. These are myths.
And for somebody who's been burned by Disney Star Wars over the past few years, hearing Jon talk about that really is a huge ray of hope for me. It's a new hope. It's something that I can get invested in, and I'm not afraid of seeing the next season of The Mandalorian coming up here in just a couple of months. It's something I can really get behind and excited about. You know, other YouTubers have talked about things like Star Wars as our modern day myths. And when we in the Fandom Menace say the words, "without respect, we reject," what we mean is exactly what Favreau's talking about in this interview. I mean, he even went so far as to use the term myths to describe what the Star Wars universe is to those of us who are great fans of it. Those of us who read the books when we were growing up, got invested into the EU, wore out VHS after VHS of The Empire Strikes Back, and were the first ones in line to go see midnight showings of the prequels. At the end of the day, what we want is for those stories to be honored and for the fans to be respected. And you know what? So far, I trust Jon a lot more than I ever did Kathleen Kennedy. Because despite her saying some of the similar things to what Jon's saying now back when she took over Lucasfilm, we've all seen what kind of product she put on the screen. In comparison, what we saw from The Mandalorian definitely was, while not outstanding, it was Star Wars.
And so you're really telling two stories at once. You're telling the story for the people who are fresh eyes, and you're telling the story for the people who've been there with the property and with the stories and the characters for so many years, and make sure that you're honoring them as well.
Jon, hearing that from you, I'm willing to go along on this ride with you. Don't disappoint us, or you'll be hearing about it. Well, there you have it. What do you think? Do we trust Favreau or not? Let me know down in the comments so we can have a conversation. If you watched this long, please do like the video, share it with your friends on social media, and consider subscribing to the channel. As a new creator on YouTube, that's the best way to help let me know that I'm doing something that you enjoyed, and to help spread my message and reach to a lot more people who can hopefully enjoy it as well.